The call came just as the lunch crowd began filling the downtown cafe, and in less than 5 minutes, everything Rowan Mercer believed about his lonely, carefully controlled life was turned upside down. He had only agreed to a blind date because his oldest friend refused to stop insisting that happiness was still possible after heartbreak. What Rowan didn't know was that before the coffee arrived, the woman walking toward his table would not be the stranger he expected. She would be the one person who had seen him at his weakest every single day without ever truly knowing him, his boss. In that single unforgettable afternoon, a quiet single father carrying years of sacrifice would discover that life sometimes saves its greatest surprises for the people who have already given up waiting. Before we begin, if you believe kindness, second chances, and unconditional love still exist in this world, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad for more emotional stories that remind us why compassion always matters. Every weekday morning began the same way for Rowan Mercer. Before sunrise painted the sky, he was already making pancakes shaped like stars for his 7-year-old daughter, Ivy. She laughed every time one came out uneven, insisting the funny-looking ones tasted better than the perfect ones. Their small apartment wasn't fancy. The wallpaper had begun peeling near the kitchen window, and the old heater made strange clicking sounds every winter morning, but it was filled with warmth because Rowan made sure his daughter never felt the emptiness left behind after her mother passed away 3 years earlier following a sudden illness. Since that day, Rowan had silently promised himself that Ivy would never question whether she was loved, even if it meant forgetting what his own happiness looked like. His days were carefully measured between school drop-offs, impossible deadlines, grocery lists, laundry piles, bedtime stories, and the demanding accounting firm where he worked. Rowan rarely spoke unless necessary. While co-workers rushed home to spouses or weekend adventures, he hurried toward the daycare before late pickup fees began adding to his already stretched budget. Most people simply assumed he preferred keeping to himself. Very few realized that grief had slowly trained him to expect disappointment before hope. The accounting firm was led by Maren Ellsworth, a respected executive whose reputation rested on impossible standards and remarkable discipline. Employees admired her intelligence but feared her silence. She always noticed mistakes, remembered forgotten deadlines, and rarely smiled during office hours. Rowan had worked under her supervision for nearly 4 years. Their conversations never extended beyond financial reports, project updates, or quarterly targets. She knew he was dependable. He knew she expected excellence. That was where their relationship seemed to begin and end. Only one person refused to let Rowan hide forever. His childhood friend Callum Reese had known him since they built treehouses together as children. Callum had witnessed the wedding, the heartbreaking funeral, and every exhausted milestone afterward. Week after week, he reminded Rowan that surviving wasn't the same as living. Rowan always brushed the conversations aside, insisting Ivy needed every ounce of his attention. Secretly, though, loneliness had become so familiar that imagining anything different almost felt dangerous. Eventually, Callum announced that enough was enough. He had arranged a blind date during Rowan's lunch break on Saturday afternoon. There would be no excuses. Ivy would spend the afternoon with Callum's wife and children, giving Rowan several guilt-free hours to himself. Rowan resisted until the final moment, then reluctantly agreed simply because he was too tired to keep arguing. The cafe chosen for the meeting overlooked a peaceful city park where families wandered beneath bright summer sunshine. Children chased pigeons across the sidewalks while musicians filled the warm afternoon with gentle melodies. Rowan arrived early, nervously adjusting the sleeves of the only blazer he still owned. It had been years since he sat across from anyone who wasn't discussing school schedules or tax reports. Every passing minute made him wonder if leaving would be easier than facing another reminder that his life no longer belonged to him. Then someone stopped beside his table. Rowan looked up. Standing there was Maren Ellsworth. For several long seconds neither of them moved. She looked just as surprised as he felt. Callum had never mentioned names. Apparently neither had whoever convinced Maren to attend. An awkward silence settled between them before they slowly realized the unbelievable truth. They were each other's blind date. Embarrassment washed across Rowan's face. He immediately assumed there had been some terrible mistake. Surely someone like Marin, confident and successful, hadn't expected to spend her Saturday afternoon sitting across from an exhausted single father who still worried about grocery prices every week. Yet instead of leaving, she quietly pulled out the chair and sat down. That simple decision changed everything. Without office walls surrounding them, Marin seemed unexpectedly different. The sharp business attire had been replaced by a simple light blue dress, and the serious executive carried herself with surprising gentleness. They laughed nervously over the coincidence before admitting that mutual friends had secretly arranged everything after months of hearing nearly identical complaints. Apparently everyone around them believed they worked too much and smiled too little. As conversation slowly unfolded, Rowan realized how little he actually knew about the woman supervising dozens of employees every day. Marin had lost her father while attending college and spent years helping raise her younger brothers. Responsibility had shaped her long before success did. She confessed that work became easier than building personal relationships because numbers followed predictable rules while people often carried invisible heartbreaks impossible to calculate. For the first time in years, Rowan found himself speaking openly about Ivy. He described bedtime adventures, school science projects, scraped knees, missing teeth, and the quiet moments when his daughter still whispered goodnight toward the framed photograph of her mother. Marin listened without interrupting. There was no pity in her expression. Only genuine understanding. Hours passed unnoticed. When they finally stood to leave, neither mentioned work. Neither discussed promotions. Neither spoke about Monday. Instead, they walked through the nearby park beneath bright afternoon sunlight, watching families enjoy ordinary moments Rowan had almost forgotten could feel beautiful. Back at the office the following week, everything outwardly returned to normal. Meetings resumed. Reports piled higher. Deadlines approached. Yet something invisible had changed. Marin never treated Rowan differently in professional settings, refusing to blur workplace expectations, but small acts of quiet kindness began appearing throughout ordinary days. Flexible scheduling suddenly became easier whenever Ivy had school events. Remote work approvals arrived faster than before. Employee family support policies expanded across the company, benefiting not only Rowan but dozens of parents balancing careers and children. Months later the truth finally emerged. Marin had noticed Rowan's sacrifices long before their blind date. She remembered evenings when he remained at the office after everyone left simply because overtime meant keeping the lights on at home. She remembered seeing him reheating leftover dinners instead of ordering takeout because every dollar mattered. She remembered overhearing him decline promotions requiring constant travel because Ivy always came first. She had admired his character long before she knew the story behind it. The blind date simply allowed both of them to see the human beings hidden beneath job titles and responsibilities. Meanwhile Ivy slowly became the unexpected bridge between two guarded adults. Their first meeting happened during the company's annual family picnic. Rowan worried endlessly about bringing his daughter, afraid mixing work and personal life might create awkwardness. Instead, Ivy immediately introduced herself to Marin with the fearless honesty only children possess. Within minutes they were laughing together while building oversized sandcastles beside dozens of other families enjoying the sunny afternoon. Watching his daughter smile so freely around someone new awakened feelings Rowan believed had disappeared forever. Still, he hesitated. Love after devastating loss felt almost like betraying precious memories. Some nights he sat alone after Ivy fell asleep, staring at old family photographs while wondering whether moving forward meant leaving someone behind. It wasn't until visiting his late wife's favorite garden on the anniversary of her passing that peace finally found him. Surrounded by blooming flowers beneath clear daylight skies, Rowan realized memories were not chains. They were gifts. Loving someone again would never erase the love that came before. The heart simply grows larger than grief ever imagined possible. From that day forward, Rowan stopped running from happiness. He invited Maren to simple family outings instead of expensive dinners. They explored museums, packed sandwiches for afternoon park visits, volunteered together at community food drives, and celebrated ordinary weekends filled with laughter rather than luxury. Their relationship grew slowly, patiently, built on honesty instead of perfection. One rainy afternoon, nearly a year after that unforgettable blind date, Rowan arrived home carrying groceries while Ivy raced toward him waving a drawing. It showed 3 figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. Above them, written in uneven childhood handwriting, were 4 simple words. "Our happy little family." Rowan stood frozen. Not because the picture was perfect, but because hope had quietly become real without him noticing. Several weeks later he invited Maren and Ivy back to the same cafe where everything began. The sunlight poured through the windows exactly as it had during that remarkable first meeting. This time there were no surprises waiting at the table, no misunderstandings, and no fear. Only gratitude. Rowan reached into his jacket pocket and removed a small velvet box. Inside rested a modest ring chosen not for its price but for what it represented. New beginnings. Second chances. A future built together. When Maren accepted with joyful tears filling her eyes, Ivy wrapped both of them in the biggest hug her tiny arms could manage, proving that families are sometimes created not by perfect timing but by courageous hearts willing to love again after unimaginable pain. Years later, employees still remembered Maren as an exceptional leader, but many quietly noticed something else. She smiled more often. Rowan continued working with the same dedication, yet he no longer carried the lonely exhaustion that once shadowed every step. Together they introduced family-friendly workplace programs inspired by struggles they both understood, helping countless parents feel supported instead of overlooked. Sometimes extraordinary love doesn't arrive dramatically. Sometimes it quietly sits down at your table when you least expect it. Sometimes the person who changes your life has been standing nearby all along, waiting for the right moment to truly see you. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that hope can return even after life's darkest seasons, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad so together we can continue sharing stories that inspire faith in humanity. Special request: comment everyone deserves a second chance at happiness if you believe love, kindness, and family can heal even the deepest wounds. As Rowan walked home that evening holding Ivy's small hand while Maren walked beside them beneath the warm afternoon sun, he realized life had never promised an easy journey. It had only promised that if he kept moving forward with love in his heart, one ordinary day could become the beginning of an extraordinary forever. And sometimes, the greatest blessing isn't finding someone who rescues you from your struggles. It's finding someone who quietly chooses to walk beside you through every single one of them, proving that even the most broken chapters can lead to the most beautiful ending.